Hello guys, since you seem to enjoy the last thing that I did where I talked about different kinds of models and whatnot, I thought it might be interesting to do something that was a little bit more talky and a little bit less drawy. I'll still be drawing today. But I wanted to do something kind of special because I wanted to make sure that I have at least one video that's like this. I tend to get this same sort of question a whole bunch. And people always want to know, how do I get into drawing, or how do I get better at drawing, or so on and so forth. And the most generic response that every artist that has ever lived always gives is practice. Practice, practice, practice. I always hated that. I always despised it whenever artists gave that response, whenever I was learning, because it doesn't tell you anything. People say things like, perfect practice makes perfect, if they want to get cute with it. That's not true. That's not true either. I've said this before, and if you've listened to me long enough, you probably know. Practice and perfect practice and so on, that's stupid. That's fucking stupid. You're wasting your time listening to people like that. If you want to actually get better at drawing, and I'm not purporting to be an expert in regards to all sorts of different art styles or anything, but if you actually do want to get better at drawing, there's no trick. You can't go out and buy a new tablet, a big, shiny new Cintiq or something, because that's not going to help you get better as an artist. It's going to enable you to have better tools, but with those new tools, you're just going to fail at a faster rate. It's not going to make you better. People are always, especially in streams, will watch and then get excited. Oh, I like drawing now because I'm watching someone draw, which is usually how it goes. And then once they do that, they will decide, I need to buy myself a new Intos or something. How do you spell that? Intos, something like that. I can't remember. And then I can actually start drawing. Wrong. I started on a little $99, it was a Wacom of some kind. I can't remember. A Graphire, I think it was. I'm pretty sure that they don't even make them anymore. But it was basically just a piece of garbage. It was very, very small. Like, it was incredibly small. And with that little bitty thing, which had probably a space of, like, this big on it that I could actually draw on, with a space that small, I managed to draw for years before I even moved up to Intuos 4. And after the Intuos, now I have this Cintiq because it's business-related. But before that, I was drawing on paper, and whenever I moved over to digital, then it took me quite a while to get used to it. Like, I think I still, somewhere around here, have the original images of the things that I was drawing whenever I first got it. And they were pretty bad, because I didn't understand things like brush settings, and pressure sensitivity, and the drivers of my tablet weren't where they were supposed to be, and so on. It was a mess. So there is that component. But, more importantly than all the tool stuff, is you just need to actually enjoy yourself, for one. And more importantly, not the perfect practice thing that I marked out before. We don't want to do perfect practice. Because the thing with perfect practice is, the idea of perfect practice, it comes from sort of a sports lingo. That, sure, you can go out and practice doing something wrong for, years and years, and you will do that wrong thing very, very expediently, but it will still be wrong. So that's the reason why people attach this perfect practice thing to it. The idea being that slow down, and actually do it correctly, because then if you're actually practicing perfectly, then the more that you do that, even though you're not spending as much time on it, then you will become better than the person that's just trying to put in as much practice as they can, ramming their head against a wall. The problem with that in regards to art is that if someone is drawing the same exact way every single time, like, say, they're not holding their pen correct, like they're holding it, like, I can't show you this, but, like, make a fist. Just make a fist in front of your hand. Imagine that you're holding a pencil in your fist, and you're just stabbing. You're just stabbing the canvas, and you're trying to get perfect even strike. Actually, this works kind of well in a way. I could probably actually do circles a little bit better this way since I have better control. But if they just do that every single time, that whenever they need to do sort of light, even strokes that have very smooth control and whatnot, they'll never be able to do it because they're practicing incorrectly, of course. But if they do that, and even if they have like good technique to their drawing, like they know exactly the amount of pressure that they need to place to be able to get a nice... That's terrible, but because I was trying to do it with the fist technique. A nice, even sort of gradient between things like that, then they wouldn't be able to do it. So even though that they are sort of practicing perfectly, they're still doing it wrong, you know? More importantly than practicing perfectly in regards to art, because there's no such thing as a perfect practice in regards to art, because everyone works differently. Like, I obviously am very illustrative. Like, I draw, you know, people. I draw people with stupid faces. And after I do that, I will go back under it with color and whatnot. And that's how I work. But someone else might be more painterly. Like, they may, instead of, you know, doing that, they may never, ever, ever work in lines, may instead do everything exclusively in color. So that whenever they want to make eyes or something, then they'll switch to like an eraser, maximum opacity. And eraser, please, paint tool side. And they'll just draw things that way. So you end up with sort of the same thing. Ooh, that's creepy. They end up with sort of the same thing, but they're doing it in a completely different way. So the idea of practicing perfectly makes no sense at all in regards to art. So if someone starts telling you that, may as well just ignore them, because they probably don't know what they're talking about, or they're just bad teachers. There's a very famous thing. I love to reference this. I'm bringing it up because of that. I've mentioned this before. But there's an infamous image of how to draw an owl. And it sort of expresses the frustration that young people, or just the learners, have in regards to art. There's actually several examples of this. Here's one right now. Of how to draw an owl. A funny creative guide for beginners. I didn't notice that. But it shows the frustration people have with these process sheets. Because they'll say, first, just draw circles. It's so easy, just draw circles. And then at some point, the artist skips huge amounts of steps. And it says, just draw the rest of the damn owl. And I think there's a couple more of these things like this. Yeah. Here's one here. Draw the rest of the damn owl. So, I love referencing this, because I always had this same reaction whenever I was looking at things whenever I was younger. Like, I would be looking at these process sheets of, you know, how do I draw this thing? And people would always do this. They would always have some sort of sheet that was similar to this, where they would start with some sort of geometric thing. Like, in this case, it would probably be more like this. They would start with a very basic geometry. And, like, they would, after, like, they did this, and they would start laying out some, kind of rough sort of building area for all the lines that they were going to draw eventually. And then after that, they might have like a third step, where after they got through doing that, then they would have like shading or something, and they would start roughing out the general area of, you know, where all the tonality and stuff is going to end up being and whatnot. Or they might alternatively have like a little thing where they have very rough kind of lines dictating where exactly the shading will eventually be. And then after that, they'll just skip ahead and, oh, there's the owl. It's already done. I despise that. Because I always wanted to know what was, you know, if this is 1 and 1, this is 2. I always wanted to know, what is 1.5? What the hell is that? And artists always do a poor job of explaining what that is. So I get it in regards to people being frustrated at learning how to draw. And I will go ahead and explain to you what that is, why people don't do 1.5. People don't do 1.5 because, and I don't have an example to show this really, but let's draw a bird wing real fast. A very crummy bird wing. like this, I suppose. There we go, it's good enough. Let's say that we have like a bird wing, and we're trying to get from... Let's say that this is our midpoint. Let's do 3 of these, I suppose. We'll have like this and this. And let's say, like I started out by saying, first you want to do some basic geometric shape, like this. Like I said, you want to start with this. These 2 shapes. People always do this. Like if someone is teaching someone how to draw Mickey Mouse, they're not drawing them, or they're not teaching them how to draw Mickey Mouse. They're teaching them how to draw this exact pose, and in this exact stance, what he's doing in this exact frame, and so on, by like drawing, the circle and then the line specifically where they are, and so forth. And they'll do things like, draw a circle here, then draw a circle here, and then draw a circle here, and then erase these 2 lines, and because they're trying to. That's not actually how you draw. Like, whenever you're drawing, you tend to be a lot rougher, especially if you're doing if you're doing like animation sheets or something. I guess is not the case, and you would kind of end up with this sort of really rough stage. That if I were doing this, like it would be something like this. It would be very, very light, and you would just work up over on top of it. Is usually how you end up drawing. But in these process sheets, these little examples, they always draw them very, very carefully. And that's not how people draw. But that is how, if you're selling books or something, that's how you just show people, this is how you draw this character. That way, whenever people are doing it in their spare time, they can just, do this and impress their friends at a party or something. Oh, you did that real good. Yeah, I learned from the best. One of those things. And if you ask them, well, can you draw him doing this? Then they wouldn't be able to, because they never learned how to draw the character. They just learned the process for that one exact image that the artist was trying to teach them how to draw. In that case, you're not learning how to draw the character. You're just learning the I don't even know what to call it. You don't actually know how to draw them by heart. You just know how to draw them by tutorial. Like you know the steps that have been given to you, and you know how to repeat those steps, but you don't understand them. And that's fine. But anyways, as far as the birdwing stuff goes, and this 1.5 thing that I was talking about, because the joke image, I'm not going to reference the joke image. Let's, instead of calling it 1.5, we'll call it like 1.5, and, well, I take that back. There will probably be, crap, I'm ruining my own example by overthinking it. You know what, let's just go ahead for the sake of simplicity, because I was thinking, well, they would probably have 4 different examples instead of just 3, and then I started doing that in my head. But let's go back just for the sake of simplicity. Let's say that this is the final rendered thing, and it's like, come on. Okay, there we go. And this is going to be really cruddy looking. Blah, 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 blah. Where you get the idea of what I'm trying to do here. Where they have like a final render thing. This looks terrible. This is not realistic at all, but... Well, they will have some sort of final realized image like that owl that we were talking about. And it'll look all nice and perfect and whatnot. And it's basically what you consider to be done in some respects. Just for the sake of argument, just imagine that this was a good drawing. Just imagine that was the case. But they would have like a image like this. They would show you starting here, and then they would do something like, say, now add little divots into the shape or something like. No one draws this way. I hate it whenever they do things like this. But they would do something like this where they would say, well, now you just sharpen up the general shape that you're working with and add little bitty things to it. No one draws this way. There might be someone, but I've never actually seen anyone draw this way. This is just a tutorial in a book sort of way of teaching kids how to draw something. And they would do all that, and, they would have like the wings or something. And you would end up with sort of that thing that I started with. And you would have like this step. and then all of a sudden they would jump ahead and you would end up at something like this. And if you're wondering, well, how come there's nothing in between? Like, where is 1.5? In the case of 1.5, what's actually happening is there are incredibly large amounts of much, much smaller steps. Because there is no, like, 1 to 5, 1 to 10 process. It's more of a step of, if this is a 1 to 10, it'd be like I've already done 1 to 3 here. It's more like 4 is kind of a slightly bigger step, and then 5, 6, 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, 5, 6.4, 5, and if you're wondering what I'm doing, is it gets to the point where all their steps, like, they mean much less more. Like, the steps are so tiny and incremental, it's not even worth showing off because you would just end up with pages and pages of content. Like, that's the reason why I do the video way of showing off how to do this. Is because that's the only way that you can really look at it and understand it. And that's the reason why I don't like speeding up the video too fast, although usually I end up having to, is because then you can't really tell what's happening. But usually, like all these various steps, it kind of just ends up being this way. That, like, the further they go along, the closer you get to 10, or 5, or whatever it happens to be, then the individual steps that you're taking get so tiny and so incremental, like 9.9997 or something. They get so small and so insignificant that it's almost impossible to really show them off. Because what's actually going on is they will, say, come up with this line work here. And then after that, they'll kind of do what, I was trying to do here, where they're kind of just laying out... Actually, I'm not even shouldn't even be that careful. Well, they'll sort of just lay out rough shading areas. And you can consider this to be a step. Like, this is a step in and of itself. And after they've done that, then they'll kind of go in and add another little bit of shading, where the shadows are a little bit more present. And then, if you stop here, you can consider this to be yet another step. And they would just keep going like this, over and over again. And they're just making little bitty, tiny gestural changes. They're not big, sweeping steps in the drawing process. They're just very, very tiny, incremental things that the artist is not even really thinking about. And eventually, you'll kind of get to this point... Let's make this. You'll kind of get to this point where, they have gone along so much with this... And I'm not going to do a full picture of a bird wing or anything here. That it looks like it's sort of almost completely realized, but it's obviously not. And you end up with something that is at like a 9.97 or something. And it would be almost done, but again, that's not really worth showing off because it's so incremental. I hope you guys know what I'm talking about here. But the reason why that you don't have your 1.5s is because whenever you are working, then it's very easy to show off these beginning steps of draw shape. Once you have drawn your shape, refine the shape in some way. And once you refine the shape in some way, add in your kind of shading layers or wherever exactly it's meant to be shaded the most. I don't even know what I'm drawing here. I'm just doing something. And then once you do that, then you have like a part where you sort of blur everything together as you pull the tonality into itself. And you end up with something that's kind of more realized. And the process of sort of refining that and getting, say, a very hard shape like this to be something that's a bit more blended, like, say, smaller image. There's something that's a bit more blended, like you're trying to blend it perfectly in some way. Like you're trying to do something a bit... trying to do something... Like, you see what I'm talking about here? Like, it's not going to be perfect. Like, it's such a process that is trying to get things just right. It takes a while. And often it's not a clean process. See if I go up and down, it's a little bit cleaner. Although I'm still have to be very careful with it. A bit more like that, I guess. But if you're trying to get from like this into that, then the process, that 1.5 that you don't see, was, as you saw, like even with this little thing, that was like me doing, what, how many things did I do? Like, I did that, I used this to pull everything over, and then I went back and did it again, and then I did it like one more time, and then I used the blur tool to sort of try to pull it back over. Then after that, I did like another thing where I kind of softened the edges, and then I did another thing where I pulled even that further out. Like, there's all sorts of little bitty incremental things that you're just not going to show. And that's the frustrating part. Like, that's the part where people are wondering, how did he do that? It's because there's just tons and tons of itty-bitty little things like that that you're never going to see unless you're just watching them do it. And that's why I do these videos. Anyways, ignoring all that, like, the whole purpose of mentioning all that was just to highlight how frustrating it is for you guys. If you don't know how to draw, you don't know how to do all these things, how frustrating it is, and how I understand how frustrating it is, because I was there too. I know how annoying it is to talk to an artist and have them just draw the rest of the damn owl, where they show you like the circles, and then they just jump ahead and you go, wait, how'd you do that? Why are you doing this? And they don't tell you because they're in the middle of it and they're thinking about it. And most of the time you're not talking to them, you're reading a book or something. And you have no idea how they got from one point to another. Like, I have for the longest time been trying to learn how to do realism a little bit better. Like how to get better, say, for example, I'm not going to draw something. Better skin, just shading skin. Like, shading skin is very difficult for me because you can easily end up with something that looks kind of rubbery, or it looks almost metallic, or it looks a bit too shiny, or, you know, there's just so many things that you can do to accidentally screw up shading skin. It's very, very difficult. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of strayed into this binary way of shading that's kind of become more my style over the years. But I've studied other artists, and I've looked at how they shade, and even whenever I'm looking at it with all my years of experience, I look at it and I still can't really emulate it, because the people that I want to learn to emulate are not good teachers. Like, even if they have a video process where they have like a time-lapse thing where they're drawing like a big mountain landscape or something, then they just do it, and then there'll be big chunks missing from the video, where all of a sudden this just turns into... It turns into something a bit more like this or something, and it's way more shaded. It's like, how do they do that? Or usually what actually happens is so much of that is contingent on using your brush settings, that in the process of everything flying by at 1,000,000 miles per second, you can't even see what the settings are. Like, they're changing them so quickly that even if you tried to pause on exact frames, and I'm sitting here looking at the settings, often the fidelity of the video is so poor that I can't make them out. Or they're using a brush that I don't have because it came from a pack that they don't link to. Like, there's so many things that can drive you absolutely crazy. So, I get it. I understand. I know why you ask these questions. How do I get into drawing? Is there a trick? Is there some sort of unique little process that I can do so that I will become better? No. You can't buy a tablet and it'll make you better. You can't draw an owl with shapes and then it's going to make you better. And even practice, you know, no to new tablets. New tablet's not going to make you better instantly. No to drawing owls with shapes that end up being perfectly rendered, beautiful owls. I probably couldn't render that owl as well as that guy did. No to that. No to this, no to that. Practice. You can, like, I've seen people that have been doing, like, webcomics, and I've mentioned this before. They've been doing webcomics or something for years, and they draw in the same style. I'm sure that you can think of your own examples here. And they draw the same way every single time. And they draw that way for years. And it looks just as awful today as it did, 10 years ago whenever they started. Because they draw the same way every single time. You're not going to get better with just practice. And perfect practice. Like, by the way, if you've ever seen, like, people that show, here's my drawing from, I'll draw even worse. Here's my drawing from, like, 2003, and then they show, like, a thing from, like, 2005 or something, and this is beautiful, completely realistic-looking head or something. And you get so angry, like, what? What did you do? And this comes down to the idea of perfect practice. Perfect practice, again, meaningless, because you can try to come up with a perfect method of drawing, but there's no perfect method of drawing, so that's a moot point anyways. Instead, I would say you need to have variable practice. And what I mean by variable practice, and I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to keep hammering it into your guys' heads, is you need to make sure that you are drawing differently. Draw differently all the time. And I know this is very frustrating, but you need to try different things constantly. If, say, this is kind of less important for someone that's just starting out and just picking up a pencil for the first time, because it's not really going to matter to them, obviously. But if, say, you kind of draw like I do, and, you're kind of drawing your head shape, and you draw sort of like this most of the time, and you end up with sort of a little guy like this by drawing this way. If you do that all the time, by doing sort of these light, sketchy motions or something like that, in my case, instead of drawing that way, some days I will decide, and this doesn't last long usually, kind of do as I say, not as I do, but I'll start trying to do it in a different way. Like, instead of drawing it with lines, sometimes I'll decide, well, maybe I will attempt to do it exclusively with shades, and I'll do it this way. And instead of rendering things out with lines, I will try to do it with nothing but these kind of basic shapes like this. And I'll end up with something that's not blending too well, actually. Let's switch to a brush. Oh, even that's not blending too well. Oh, it's because I'm on the outer edge. Okay, I see. Actually, we'll switch back to that then. And I'll start trying to draw this way. And that'll sort of work. And it may not come out looking that great, but you'll kind of get something that's sort of in a similar vein, but it looks a little bit different from the things that you usually do. And this will still be a basic shape. And you'll end up with something like that. It may not be what you want, but the important thing is you did something differently. You tried a different approach. Because again, practicing is not going to get you anywhere. Perfect practice is not going to get you anywhere. Owls are not going to get you anywhere, and new tablets, new pens, new paper is not going to get you anywhere. You might notice a slight bit of improvement with some of those things, but it's not going to make you a better artist. What will make you a better artist is taking in new things around you. And this is one of the things that hopefully if you head off to college or something, and whether or not you're even interested in drawing or anything, I would recommend that you take some art classes. And I would recommend that you would take some art classes just because this is one of the things that a lot of people don't realize about this. That a lot of art is about, it sort of extends into philosophy, and it kind of extends into, more importantly, yourself. In the sense that, what are the lessons that you will learn from art and being forced into doing something like painting when you don't paint, or sculpting whenever you don't sculpt, or building three-dimensional profiles of objects with wood whenever you don't do anything like that, is it teaches you to think in different ways, and it gives you a broader scope of how to approach things. It's always good to have variable experience in life. In regards to art, in regards to just general behavior, getting to know new people, anything like that. It's good to have new experiences rather than just repeating the same experiences over and over again, because you will eventually not only grow to appreciate other things, but you can also bring this into this, so that you can take the experiences of one and put it with the other, and you'll end up with something that is completely different. If I thought ahead, I would have lined this correctly. I can probably make it work, though. And you'll end up with something that's completely different. And as a result, you could say that the new approach would end up being even better. Because that's how new styles develop. People think in different ways. Like, take a Picasso, for example. Like, Picasso is a very famous example of this. Picasso, the guy that, cut off his ear, and he drew weird swirly things and stuff like that. Find an image of his real fast. He was never appreciated in his own life. Like, you might hear the name and think that he was some sort... Wait, not Picasso. Van Gogh. Why did I say Picasso? Oh, it's because I was looking at Picasso things earlier. Just ignore that. Did it again. Not Picasso, Van Gogh. Van Gogh is a very famous example of this. Like, the guy that does things like this. Van Gogh is a very good example of this. Because sort of around the time period that he existed, things like photography and stuff like were starting to come into being, and the concept of we need to replicate reality via art, and actually the term art is sort of, our modern perception of what art is something that's completely different. I might do a gripe on that someday. Is a very recent invention. Because prior to sort of the advent of photography, people would try to replicate things in real life with, sculptures, with paintings. So often the approach was one of realism. People were aiming for realism, trying to replicate what was in real life. Because the idea was you were aspiring to a great truth. And that truth was something that human beings were aiming to try to replicate, but were incapable of doing because actually trying to replicate reality was so difficult. But once you kind of got into the realm of technology taking over and us being able to just take photographs of people, then that stopped being a problem. And people were actually able to kind of construct things more like this, where they were focusing more on things like trying to capture the feeling of what something is, rather than its literal presence. Or trying to capture the emotions behind it, rather than trying to depict it literally. One of the most famous examples that sort of drive people up the wall is something called white on white. And I can't remember who did this. Several people have actually done this, in fact. But there's one in particular that's infamous for it. But all white on white was someone took a blank canvas, if I can't remember his name, I'm not going to Google it real fast, and he just painted over it with white. Kind of a very particular kind of white, too. And you might wonder, well, what the hell is that about? And of course, it's a very famous painting, and you might wonder, why? Why is that so important? And this is one of the things, people get really angry at things like Pollock paintings and stuff like that, because there's little dots everywhere, and people just look at it, well, who cares? It's a picture of a can. But usually the reason why paintings like that are famous is because they were trying to break convention over what, paintings and depictions and what the approach of art needed to be. And in the case of white on white, the guy was trying to make a point of, instead of making these big elaborate things, whether it's, a Van Gogh, or whether it's a Baroque or something, some sort of Baroque painting, how can we reduce... Although I'm using purple, but just imagine that this is... Actually, hold on, I'll just do it this way. I'll do it this way, actually, hold on. This would be the best way of showing this off. Instead of doing it that way, let's say it's like this. Let's imagine that this is like the... Actually, crap. I'll get rid of my little dude here. And I'll get rid of my quote-unquote Picasso. I can't even remember his name now. My quote-unquote Picasso, aka Van Gogh, and do it this way. But if you took, like, this white-on-white thing, and you start with a white canvas, and the guy was using... It wasn't quite completely white, I guess, but it's more like this. And he kind of went over this area. Imagine this as being your canvas. And he just went over it with this other white. And if you look real close, you can kind of see his gestural strokes and things like that. And you might wonder, what's the point of that? And the point he was trying to make is, how far can we reduce the information on a canvas to the point that it is actually depicting something without being something literal? And that was sort of the birth of what we consider to be graphic design today. Because if you think about graphic design, like, graphic design is the challenge of how do I get as much information as possible into something as small as possible. And one of the best examples of this would be something like a bathroom sign, where you have just, like, say, this. And that's all it is. Like, it's just like these three shapes. Circle, and then this weird sort of triangle, and another inverted triangle. And a lot of people would instantly recognize this as, oh, that's a female-only bathroom sign. Because this is depicting sort of a feminine form in as reduced of a style as they can possibly get. And we just sort of know this intrinsically from years of association that this is a bathroom sign. So the lessons of white on white are that you are trying to pack information as tightly as you possibly can using the least amount of information possible. And the point I'm trying to make in all of this is that it's not necessary to draw things as realistically as possible, and it's not necessary to make them these big, swirly Van Gogh things that are sort of gestural and beautiful and whatnot. And more the point that I was trying to make with Van Gogh was during his time, he was a failure. Van Gogh was a burden on his family. He was considered to be a loser by pretty much everyone that knew him. He was a shut-in. He didn't accomplish anything in his life. And he died. And that was it. Like, his paintings were never famous. No one ever knew who he was. He died being a burden on his brother, I think specifically. I think he was living with his brother. I can't remember what his history was. And he never really even sold anything. He was just basically a loser. He was a loser. But, retroactively, whenever this white-on-white, not that, well, it was a little bit earlier than that, but whenever this idea of, hey, we have photography now, we don't need to, the mood of art, I guess, the way that people perceived it, stopped being one of reaching out to the sublime truth of things, and sort of became more the method of trying to find truth in depictions that were not realistic, and kind of getting the history a bit muddled there. But the idea was that whenever that started happening, whenever people actually started concentrating on doing things like this, they went back and saw people like Van Gogh. They went back and saw Van Gogh and retroactively said, hey, this guy was doing it before we even kind of caught on to the idea. He was a little bit ahead of the curve. And sort of retroactively, Van Gogh became famous after his own death because people were going back and looking at his work and then saying, oh, you can depict things in a non-literal way and sometimes convey emotion better with non-realism and figurative gestural strokes and things better than you ever could using pure realism. And from sort of that stepping stone of the Van Goghs of the world, you ended up with your white-on-whites and your Pollock paintings and things like that. And that's how that got started. But, all that, pointing out all that, like, Van Gogh did what he did because he enjoyed doing it. He was doing something different. He was not attempting to do things the same exact way that everyone else was doing. And in that same way, even if you're not doing anything in relation to art, like, say if you're listening to this and you don't even care about art, that's fine. But if you're going to go into anything, whether you're going to go into business, whether you're going to go into jerking people off for a living, or I don't know, whatever you're doing, try doing it a different way. Instead of going up and down, go side to side or something. He won't like it, but hey, you'll learn something new. Because that's the point. Whenever you're doing anything like this, whether you're doing anything different, whether you're doing anything in life, gain as much information, a range of knowledge as you possibly can, so that you are versatile. And because of that versatility, you are able to apply all sorts of knowledge that you have gained over the years into whatever it is that you happen to be doing. And I remember during one of my evaluations in college, one of the things that I told my teachers was that in regards to the painting that we were doing and the sculpting that we were doing, like I was making ceramic jars and things like that, in regards to all these experiences, I told them that the lessons that can be learned from, say, molding a clay pot can be applied in illustration. And the lessons that you can learn from painting can be applied to molding clay. Like, whenever you are painting, you're taking a very kind of hard range of something, and then you're trying to blur out the edges and then pull different colors together so that you end up with something intermediate between the two of them. And it's sort of like that. Like, that's one of the lessons that you learn in painting. And one of the lessons that you learn in ceramics is kind of the same thing. Is whenever you are molding your clay, you kind of have to be firm with it, but you also have to have a little bit of leadway. And you need to sort of take these kind of bigger, like usually whenever you start molding something, you have like a big lump like this. And then, you spin it on the wheel and things like that. And you sort of just push your hands into its side, just barely, with enough water to be able to give it a little bit of looseness to it. And then you move up, and you just are trying to blend things together as evenly as you possibly can by taking a very large section and moving it outward into something that's looser that gradiates into whatever it is that you're trying to lead it into. Which is what I just got through doing in regards to the little painting thing that I was showing. So, learn versatility in everything. That, more than anything else, is going to help you. Have new experiences. Meet new people. Get into arguments with people that seem completely different from you in every way. That, to me, is going to be a lot more important in regards to learning how to do things better than practicing something perfectly, or practicing in general, or drawing an owl, or something like that, drawing Mickey Mouse or whatever. To me, that's far more important. Although you should obviously still be drawing. That just goes for life in general. But in regards to drawing, of course, you're going to start out drawing something very simple. And at this point, I decided the best way to sort of illustrate this as I talk would be to do what I've done before. This pen is bothering me because it kind of looks like I've done something to it, and I'm not sure what I did to it. Oh well. I decided to do something that I've done before and switch over to my other hand. I am right-hand dominant. I decided, you know what? Might be good for this exercise to switch over. Oh, I popped the thing out. That's what happened. Huh. Well, that's going to fall out. I'll have to fix that later. Crap. I will switch over to my left hand. Because a lot of you guys are not going to have, like, the technical... Like, even if I told you to draw, like, a straight line. Just, straight line or something. Not up and down, but, just... It's straight. Like, as straight as you can possibly get it. A lot of you would not have that skill. Because, as I pointed out in the past in my courage video, which I think actually is probably in some ways a bit more useful in some regards than this video, as far as this process is going to go, is that you can have the knowledge of how to do something, but your hands you just have dummy hands. Like, your hands just can't do it. I'm doing this with my left hand, by the way. Because practice. Because your hand, your motor control in that hand is just not good enough. So you can't really blame yourself for not being able to do things a certain way. Because, you know, you physically have not practiced enough for it. So, you know, blank canvas. Starting at blank canvas. Going to answer kind of the two variations of this question I get the most. People ask, again, how do I get into drawing? Or how do I get better drawing? Again, I've already answered how do I get better drawing is just try different things. You know, try working like Van Gogh. Try working like me. Try working like a webcomic artist that you saw one time. Try working like someone that's using realism. Try doing something that's not even related to illustration. Try molding clay, or try fucking a horse. Try swimming the Atlantic. Whatever. Just have new experiences. Because that's going to help you a whole bunch. Now, the other part of it, how do I get into drawing? Because a lot of people will do this. They'll just sit here and stare at this canvas. And they have absolutely no idea what to do. What do I draw? I want to draw, but I don't know what to draw. How do I draw it? Where do I start? That is a really kind of perilous place to be. I've never really had that problem because this is, to me, is key, is because I've always enjoyed things. I'm not saying that you don't enjoy things, but to me the core of drawing anything is it has to be something that you actually enjoy doing. Like, you will always have something to draw if you love something. Whenever you're drawing something, just find something that you like. Like, let's just move away from the canvas for a second. We don't even need this. No canvas. Just lean back for a second and think to yourself, like, who are you? Like, as a person, who are you? What do you enjoy? Why do you enjoy doing those things? Why do you enjoy the thing that you like watching? What is it about that you enjoy? What kind of, like, if you're attracted to women or men or something, why do you find them attractive? What elements about their bodies or their personalities do you find appealing? And if it's something like, for example, you'll notice I tend to draw a lot of sort of slender yet also kind of muscular women that are kind of weird in some ways. And that's because I like that. I like women that are strong. Like, they're not like huge bodybuilder China type women, but they are like, their personalities are imposing. They exert their will on other people. They're strong. They know what they want. They can exert it. They have this sort of seize the day attitude about things. They're wise, but they're also calm. They can manage people, but they're also caring and loving and so forth and so on. And a lot of that is sort of referenced in even, you know, I'm drawing like pervy nonsense, like spider women, buff spider women getting out of the shower or something. I'm applying all these traits to it. But I try to sort of carry over that sort of personality into a lot of the like, I'm kind of infamous for drawing women, of course. I try to carry those over into the subject matter that I'm drawing. Like, I focus a lot on personality, and I'm doing that because I like those things about women that I like. I like it whenever they are healthy, too. I like sort of moderately muscular women, too. And I guess men, too. Like, moderately muscular men. Everyone likes moderately muscular men, too. I wish I was moderately muscular, you know? You don't want to get too big. You don't want to get too big, because that gets kind of weird. You want just enough that you can actually see, like, their proportions are contained. Like, women proportions tend to be sort of like this, and men's, like, this is the side of the body, and men's proportions seem to be more like this. You want sort of that. You want the proper ratio to their body, but you also want to be able to see the musculature. Like, as they move, it's nice. Like, if they're moving their arm, you like to being able to see like that one little line where the deltoid comes down and meets the rest of the musculature of the arm and stuff like that. Like, that's very appealing on a very basic human level. And I think about things like this. Like, I enjoy things. Like, I don't always just criticize. Like, the reason why I criticize things, my name is Plague of Gripes on this channel. My name is Plague of Gripes, and I chose that name for a very particular reason. One is just because, like, my old call sign used to be Plague in games, because people considered me to be irritating in regards to how I fought them in certain games. Like, I think I got this call sign in Star Siege whenever I played that. And I was known for being an extremely irritating opponent because I liked playing things that were aggressive and fast, and I enjoyed poking out and hitting them and then running off and just being irritating. So I kind of got that call sign. Plus, I had this thing with Grim Reapers and stuff back in the day. There's a whole story behind that. But the gripes portion of it is just, I like to complain. And it's not like I just like to complain for the sake of complaining. I like to complain not because this is terrible. I like to complain because this could be better. Like, I enjoy looking at things, thinking about the things I enjoy. Like, say I enjoy Dark Souls or something. And I will complain up and down about things like the backstab mechanics or, the way that shields work and how it's harming the overall health of the series whenever people are reacting to it the wrong way and things like that. And I don't mention things like, I don't know, Call of Duty or, what are people, Far Cry or Tomb Raider or something. Not because they're bad, but I don't care about them. So I'm not going to complain about them. If I'm not complaining about something, it's usually because I don't care about it. But if I am complaining about something, usually it's either because I care about it or because there's some sort of element. Like, if I found like a big dog turd out in the road, and there's like a diamond inside of the dog turd, I would complain about how the dog turd has all these problems with it. Because, hey, there's a diamond in here. And you put this dog turd around it. Who would do that? Why did you do that? What a stupid idea that someone would take this diamond and have all these elements of dog turds around it. Like if you're watching something stupid like Naruto, and you start noticing, wow, these fights have kind of good ideas, but they're executed really poorly. You might wonder, why am I even watching this? It's because of that reason. Not because you enjoy complaining necessarily, but because there's some element inside of it that is almost interesting that is being ruined. And witnessing that is interesting enough that it makes you want to analyze it and then complain and bitch about it. And that's the fun of it. So whenever you're drawing stuff, think about what you enjoy. Like, I enjoy strong women. It's like big, sort of muscular, strong, imposing women with aggressive personalities, and they probably have brown skin too, sort of kind of loosely, not like really dark, but kind of brown like that. As creepy as I can make it. And I like that. And you have to wonder, why do I like that? And that's where this comes in. Like, art is not only just about just drawing buff ladies. It's about you. It's about you wondering to yourself, why do I like these things? So, to me, one of the keys of actually getting better and getting into drawing in the first place, and you're encountering this blank canvas. What do I do? What do I do? You're encountering that because you're not thinking internally. You're not analyzing yourself. You're not, like people describe this you're not praying, you're not meditating, or whatever you want to call it. You're not internalizing yourself. You're focusing too much on the external. Like you're probably playing too many video games. You're probably watching too many movies or something. Like, I'm not saying all the evils of video games and movies or anything like that. Those can be a very good source of inspiration and whatnot. But if you are going to actually get into art, it is important to be able to sort of push those things kind of in front of you and then look at them, but also look at yourself at the same time. You need to be able to analyze what it is that you like and what it is that is appealing about things to you to be able to project something from yourself onto this canvas. The reason why it is blank is because you are blank. That's the problem. First, find something that you enjoy. What is it about X that you enjoy? What do you love? And if you can't find an answer to that, first you need to be able to find that answer. Like, that's most important above all else. Like, you are more important than the things that you draw. And the thing about writing and the thing about making art is that most of the time the reason why people write, and writing's a better example of this, and something I of course, have some experience with. I told Wooly this the other day, and he was surprised whenever I mentioned, the novel that I had written before I started the animation stuff. And he was like, "Oh, I didn't know that," because they don't ask questions about, they don't care about me. They don't care about me at all. They never ask me about my day, those bastards. Anyways, but I have some experience in regards to writing and whatnot. And the thing with writing is usually the reason why people write, and the reason why I got into writing, is because, like in my case, like I had a bunch of personality problems whenever I was growing up. And that stemmed mainly because my dad was always, putting me down. Like, he had his own problems, and he was always telling me almost every single day, "You're worthless, you will never amount to anything, you're stupid, you don't know what you're doing. Whenever I try to give you something to do, you don't listen to me, you do it incorrectly." And a lot of that was because, he's actually stupid himself. Like, I'm not just criticizing because, I'm angry at my... He actually is kind of just a dumb person. He's kind of admitted to this, of course. But he's one of those guys. Like, he's just kind of slightly below average intelligence. Not too overly clever, but sort of, he still has his moments here and there. And because of a lot of, pressures from money and stuff... Like, whenever I was born during a time in which we were having a major drought in our area. And as a result, I remember vaguely selling grain bins and things, and people coming and taking away all of our equipment. And, everyone being depressed, and, I was wondering, why are these people taking all of our things? These belong to us, don't they? And my mom had to explain to me, no, they're taking it because we have to sell it because, we don't have any money. Because there was such a major drought in the area that lasted years and years. And it was just impossible to make any money. In between that and me being born, our family was in dire straits because they had to support so many people. And by the way, I was an accident, if you're wondering. Like, they didn't plan for that. So that's probably where that all came from. Just to give you guys some groundwork for this. And this has been years past. Like, this stuff doesn't bother me at all anymore. But whenever I was younger, this all led to me having a lot of problems. Like, I had lots of problems in self-confidence. And I didn't understand, who I was, what I wanted, how I appeared to other people, and things. Like, all the things that young people go through. Like, all the things a lot of you guys probably are still going through. And to me, writing, being able to sit down and write about other people that were having similar problems, or they were having more fantastic versions of things that I was thinking about, was a very good way of just getting those ideas down and understanding them. Because the more that you write, you should be learning about yourself. People don't write to take existing ideas and then get them down on a sheet of paper. Like, that's a kind of a misconception. What's actually going on is they have a sheet of paper, and they have a whole mess inside their heads. Like, they are just a mess, usually. And what they're trying to do is take all these pieces of things that they love, and things that they hate, and things about themselves that they don't understand, and they're trying to shape them into something else that can then go onto the paper. And then once you have it on the paper, then you can go back over it and understand something both about yourself and about the world that you have made. Like, you'll see a lot of people externalize their own work. Like, they'll talk about characters like, I imagine they would do this. Like, they're not saying, they would do this. They kind of phrase them in such a way that it almost seems like the person that they have made, that they have fictionalized, is their own entity, and they don't know them. And, they describe them in a way that, it's almost like they sort of loosely understand them, and they're trying to describe someone that they know in real life that is not them. And that's because of that process. It's because they really don't know this person. Because to them, eventually, this sheet of paper ends up becoming sort of this externalized thing. Like, it's its own world. Like, this is its own thing now. Like, the thing that you have made is not you. It's sort of a projection of everything that was inside you that is now its own thing, that you can actually look at, analyze, criticize, and come to understand, because you're sort of in a way, sort of looking at a mirror of yourself and a bunch of other things, and you have to sort of analyze it and come to a better understanding of it. And that's the reason why writers sort of externalize things like this. And in art, it's sort of the same way. Like, everything that you draw doesn't have to be a big, fancy, oh, me, oh, God, I'm learning so much. Like, it doesn't have to be that. Like, if you just want to draw a funny face, just draw a funny face. Well, that's not funny. Hold on, he needs to be smiling to be funny. There, funny face. Not everything has to be big and dramatic like that. But the source of anything that you draw is probably going to be something that's internal. So you have your blank canvas. What do you put on it? Just find something. You find something by just finding something that you actually love. Create something on your own. Take something that you enjoy from a video game or something and try to put your own spin on it. Like, a lot of the reason why people start drawing something is because they have an idea and they don't have a way of realizing it. So let's take our left hand here. Let's say, what would be something that I enjoy? Actually, let's use the thing from, oh, I have a good idea. Let me, let's see, what would be a good thing for that? I enjoy, that's what a name is, yeah. I'm thinking of, since I did DBZ in the last video, this might be a good little cross thing into this. Zangya. I was thinking about her the other day. Let's take Zangya, for example. I like Zangya. For pretty obvious reasons. Like, I've already explained this once before. Strong ladies. Moderately muscular. Oh, yeah. I love it. I love it. Let's say, and I'm going to do this with my left hand again. This is going to look terrible. Because the point of this is not to look good. It's just to show you guys that there's fun in this. Is, say, I want to draw Xenia, but I want to draw her not in this sort of ridiculous Toriyama get up. I want to draw her in, say, you know, like just a coat and blue jeans or something. You know, just something as simple as that. You can do something like that. And since I'm doing this with the left hand, this is going to be really terrible. Actually, whenever I started up this thing, I started thinking I should draw something like a forest. Something simple, like trees and shit. But you see how terrible this is. Like, I cannot get emotion out of this at all. This is extremely frustrating already. Like, I can't even get the chin just right. And I'm trying as hard as I can. Ugh, and it's so frustrating. And I understand why people give up at this stage. They start doing it and they're like, oh, this is terrible, I can't do it. Because they have this idea of, I want Xenia inside of blue jeans and a jacket. And you can't do it because you can't even get started. And that's the most frustrating thing about it. And I get it. I completely understand this. But whenever you get to this stage, and this is the reason why I sort of have recommended this in the past. And this is slightly unfair to me in a way. Because most people, even if they have no experience in drawing, they still have a favored. They're still using their favored hand. They're not using their offhand. So in my case, you know, I'm having a big problem because I'm trying to use my offhand, which I have no motor skill in whatsoever. It'd almost be like if I lost my right hand and I needed to keep working. The only way of actually doing this would be to go to my offhand. And you notice that whenever I'm drawing with my good hand, I do very loose gestural strokes. Everything is very perfect. Like, it looks like I'm really spot on because I'm very, very practiced in line work. Like, line work is my strongest suit. But you can pull a zone, and I make fun of zone for this, for just putting as much pressure as you possibly can onto the canvas. Because the more pressure that you put, the tighter you can get that slow stroke. But you can go over it and, like, trace things. Like, tracing is not a problem. Like, people, oh, you trace, just, like, fart in your hand and throw the fart into that guy's face. Because, you know, he'll probably love it. He'll fucking, believe me, take my word for it, he'll love it. Because people like that are just useless. Like, you're not making high art here. Like, I was going on and on about all the, me, all that shit. But again, if you just want to draw a buff lady, draw a buff lady. But if you find that you're struggling a bunch, tracing is a really, really good way to get into it, because you are practicing getting these strokes down with the hand that you're not practiced with. And in the process of getting these strokes down, you will sort of learn, like, you'll learn not only how to create form and things like that, but you'll also be teaching your hand in the process how to make these slightly better strokes. And it's going to look as good as something that I could, draw myself if I were using my good hand or whatever. But once you have, and I'll just kind of briefly switch my other hand just to rough things out real fast, because I'm just trying to reach the penultimate conclusion of this rather than showing a full process. But once you sort of rough out the things that you need and whatnot, then you end up with the part where you actually had the interest in, where you get to draw them in the sexy coat that you had wanted this whole time. And, here comes the payoff. Oh, it's so close, yes. And you end up drawing her with the... I'm sure people are going to be asking me after this is done, hey, are you ever going to finish that drawing of her in the coat? No. I've actually already drawn her once. I always love half coats only. This is another thing I really... Whenever you can't really do this on the guy. Like, Trunks did this in DBZ, and it looks kind of stupid to me. But, I always like that look on women whenever they have little half coats. Like, to me, that's kind of sexy, but it's also adorable. I always really like that. Where's the Zengi? Oh, it's going to load that in. I'll just wait. But you'll eventually get to the part that you actually enjoy, where you're able to... Why does he draw the waist so high? That's such an anime thing. I don't know what the hell's going on with that. But you get to the part where you actually enjoy it, regardless whether you're tracing or not. And you can finally realize this full realized thing of the sexy lady that you wanted that was inside of blue jeans. And it will look absolutely terrible. Actually, that doesn't look too terrible. See, that's what tracing gets you. Even though I couldn't really do it with one hand since I was tracing, it actually ended up not being that bad. But you end up with something like that. If I can find... Here she is. Here's Zanga. I drew that picture of her. So, mission complete! Yay! Video over. You weren't paying attention. Look, everyone look! You're in other tabs. Look! I finished it with my left hand. It's so good. But, point being with this video... Again, like, I'm not gonna... If you're taking notes, if you're the kind of person that takes notes, like, you're scribbling down everything, oh yeah, he does it, stop doing that shit. Stop it. The point being with this, whenever you're drawing, whenever you're wondering, how do I get into drawing, how do I get better at drawing, I've shown you. Trace if you need to, get the motor control in your hand down, and more importantly than all the mechanical stuff, you can buy a new tablet and so on, it can help you a little bit in some ways. If you've never experienced drawing digitally, it's probably going to be a problem, but it maybe not could be, it just depends. But more importantly than all that, you need to be able to enjoy what it is that you're doing. And if you're trying to just do this from nothing, starting from something that you enjoy in popular media is a very good approach for this, actually. Because you already love something, and there's probably already going to be reference material for you to sort of trace over and piece together. And people are going to, of course, criticize the fact that you're tracing or whatever. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. The point is not making something that's going to be high art that will be evaluated as, he was a god of the 21st century. What a legend. No one's gonna fucking care. It's a stupid Tumblr image of a lady that's wearing jeans and, she has big-ass titties or something. Fucking cares. Doesn't matter. But, just, do what you need to do. Have fun. That's how you get into drawing. That's how you get better. You actually have to enjoy what it is that you're doing. And popular media is a good place to start because there's reference material and you can start from there. It's not a big deal, guys. like all these things I've been talking about, like it may sound overwhelming to you, it may sound like nothing to you, I don't know. But the bottom line is that you're not going to get better unless you actually do something. Like you have to have agency about it. You can't ask me, like, don't send me questions on Tumblr asking, how do I get better? Is there another trick? Could you explain this? Stop asking questions, start doing. And if you're doing already and you say in the message, well, I am doing, then stop messaging me and keep doing things differently. Like, keep doing the thing that you're doing and do things a little bit differently at the same time. So that eventually you won't need the training wheels of tracing things and whatnot. Oh, this is so hard with my left hand. It is so hard to get like an even stroke. Oh man, it feels really bad. If something ever happens to my right hand, I am doomed. I am absolutely doomed. But it's not gonna do itself. You actually have to have agency about it. Like for young people especially, this is a big problem. Like I was talking earlier about confidence and how like I had to overcome my own lack of self-confidence because of the sort of emotional abuse that I got whenever I was younger. Even if you never had that problem, a lot of young people have this problem with confidence. And the trick with gaining confidence is failing. A lot of like young guys especially have it. Like my main audience, of course, is going to be young men, I imagine. Internet, blah, blah, blah. Zangias, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure that there's some ladies here and there, too. I know who you are. I know exactly who you are. But young men especially, it's a problem because in regards to biology, because, you know, women are the ones that have to expend all the energy in reproducing as far as species and evolution goes, and men are the ones that are usually the ones that are the major select their audience because they're the ones that have to prove themselves in order to be selected by the gender that is actually, or not the gender, the sex, whatever, that is the one that is responsible for expending all the energy in order to reproduce, blah, blah, blah. Big, long-winded thing about animal sex facts that you guys probably want to hear, but I'm not going to go into, sorry. That, men are usually the ones that end up with the burden of having to prove themselves. They're the ones that have to walk up and be the ones that show off all the charisma they have and impress someone immediately upon meeting them without knowing anything about them in order to prove to the person that's doing the selecting, whether it's another guy or not, you know, whether it's woman or whatever, that they are someone that is interesting and possibly worth looking into as someone as being a biological partner, you know, looking at it from those basic terms. So young men tend to have this problem a bunch, and young unconfident men will always have this problem of, oh, Zangia is so pretty. If only I had the courage to ask her out. But what if she says no? What if she says no and it all falls apart and I get made fun of? Well, guess what? You are. She will say no. She absolutely will say that woman that girl that you're thinking of right now, that you have known for years, that you never ever have, like, you've always had the urge to say something to her, but you just never did or whatever. I mean, I'm not going to tell you, like, your situation, who knows what the hell's going on. I don't. It's possible that she could be interested in you, and there's always been that longing in her heart or whatever, but you probably know. You probably actually know what's going to go on. Like, if you're in class or something and she's never given you really the time of day and you sort of just say hi in the halls or something, if you profess your undying love, she's not going to drop everything and be like, oh, of course, yes, you know, I've always waited, you know, I've longed, but you've never said anything. That's not going to happen. Like, the longer that you wait, the more that you create this image of the person that doesn't exist, the more problems that you're going to have. But point being, you know, confidence. Go up, say something to her, and she will shoot you down. And then, no more Zangia. No more Zangia. She's gone. Because she said no, you were humiliated in class or whatever. You failed. You humiliated yourself, she said no, everything comes crashing down. But guess what? All the players or whatever you call them, the guys that actually do have success, sure, they're probably pretty and whatnot. And you can be pretty and still be a loser. But the reason why they are succeeding where you are failing is not only because they're good looking, it's because they were good looking enough initially to have minor successes that have given them the confidence to be appealing to, whoever, whether it's men or women, I don't care. Fucking, I mean, PC, modern PC shit. That they have the confidence to be appealing to other people now. And you're wondering, where does that confidence come from? Confidence comes from failure. It always comes from failing, but then, later on, because of learning from those failures, having minor successes. And the sooner that you start doing that, the sooner that you actually approach that girl, the sooner that you approach that guy, the sooner that you start drawing with your left hand, the sooner that you fail doing it, the sooner that she turns you down, the sooner that you get over that and go on to the next person that interests you, and then fail again, and then go on to the next one, and go on to your fifth drawing with your left hand, your fifth Zanga, your fifth owl made out of circles, then you will have minor successes. And once you actually have that minor success, then you will have the confidence that even if that doesn't work, then you will be able to carry on further on in life. Everything stems from failure. Everything. You will always learn more from failures than you will learn from successes. Do not be afraid of screwing up. Do not be afraid of being rejected. I know that you think that what's-her-face is, she's the prettiest, sweetest thing that ever was, and her butt is so good, or whatever you're doing, I don't know. But it doesn't matter. Like, it probably won't even work out. Like, most people, the first person that they fall for is definitely not going to be the person they end up with. And it's not because they, it doesn't work out, and, if only it had, that would have been the perfect marriage forever. That's fucking stupid. Don't be a child. Because that very, very rarely, like, it happens sometimes, I guess, but it very rarely happens. Actual life is a result of hard decisions, failures, learning to overcome yourself, and fighting against the world and succeeding because of your confidence and skill that you have developed. That's how you actually improve. That's how you end up with the person that you end up with. By developing yourself, failing, and learning in the process of writing the words on the sheet of paper that you don't recognize anymore because it became its own thing, or drawing the thing that you didn't anticipate drawing because you're trying to draw a different way. By having these failings and experiences, that it gives you the confidence to be able to do things like make an internet video about a blank canvas with nothing on it as you talk about it. That gives you the confidence to be able to ask the girl out and then fail, but then ask another girl out that you develop an interest in later on, and be able to exert the confidence to be able to show that you're someone worth having, because you are not only confident in who you are, but you have the knowledge and experience to be able to show that other person something that is worth having in their life. That's what's important. If you're wondering, like, whether it's writing, whether it's art, whether it's meeting other people, dating, or whatever, a lot of it comes down to, what do you have to give your audience? What do you have to give the other person? What do you have to give the relationship? Because that's what the other person is going to be looking for. Whether they're watching this video, whether they are getting a love letter from you or whatever it happens to be, then they're going to be judging you not based on, are they nice? It doesn't matter if they're nice. You know how many times a woman a day gets approached by a nice person? It happens especially pretty ladies. Like, they get approached by nice guys all the time. You wonder, how come the nice guy thing doesn't work? Because it happens all the time. You're boring. You are boring her. You approach, hello, my lady, a tip of the hat to you. I don't know why I use Irish now. But you're boring her. People like that are a dime a dozen. Get more experience in life. Develop a personality. Be confident. Fail. Keep failing until you can draw with your left hand. Even though I'm not gonna Hey, that's a nice circle for my left hand. I did that with my left hand, guys. See? See, I'm succeeding already. But fail until you can actually get to the point where you actually are an appealing person. The reason why you're getting rejected, sometimes it's just because your tastes don't align, of course. But the reason why you're getting rejected can also be just because you are not developed. You have not developed yourself. Your skill level is not high enough. You're not experienced enough. You're not interesting enough. You're just nice. You have good intentions. I have good intentions with this video. This doesn't mean this video is worth watching. My good intentions don't mean anything. What matters is the fact that I'm actually able to give you guys an experience worth having, that you're actually willing to sit around and listen to. Because ultimately, this canvas is blank. Like, this canvas sort of represents my ugly, hideous face. Like, I have a big, ugly man head. Like, I'm a monster. Like, I'm probably not as ugly as that. Probably not. But I was never... Well, I'll take that back. Whenever I was a teenager, I was always overhearing the ladies say, "Oh man, he's fucking hot." And I would, like, since I had low confidence, this was my problem. I would always say inside my head, well, they're probably talking about someone else. Like, I'm overhearing a conversation about someone else. Or they're actually making fun of me. Because that's how I was. Like, I had no confidence whatsoever because of all the abuse and whatnot. So, I was self-defeating in that way. But I was probably, actually kind of marginally attractive whenever I was younger. Not so much now. Like, I have to really dress up to be able to get any looks these days. Being 30 and sitting in a chair for 10 hours a day will do that to you. But, despite my blank canvas looks these days, probably, I still have an interesting enough personality that people are willing to sit around and listen to my ramblings. And that's because of the experiences that I've had. More importantly, it's been because of the failures that I've had. Like, I've drawn lots of pictures that people hated. I've drawn lots of pictures that had good intentions, but the shading was terrible, or I got the form wrong, I drew the hands wrong or something, and it ended up ruining the picture because I did one thing incorrectly. Or because, I just didn't have the skill level, and my lines were wobbly and jagged and didn't have any pressure sensitivity because my hands were just stupid. They were stupid teenagers that didn't have any experience with women because they wouldn't ask out one girl. They didn't have the confidence to just ask someone. They just sat there trembling in a corner because they were being fucking pussies that were afraid of failing, instead of going out and doing their fucking job and being a man and failing and humiliating yourself like a real man would. You notice, like, the confident guys, they don't care. Like, the older you get, especially if this happens, you don't care. Like, if you see a pretty lady, you just walk up. Like, hey, hey, baby, let's do the mumbo jumbo in our pants, or whatever the guys say these days. I don't know. I was never good with mumbo jumbos. But, the guys like that, the lady be like, ew, no. And rather than like, oh God, what did I do? I'll think about this for weeks afterwards. They're like, man, fuck you, bitch. They just walk off. And that's because they're not afraid of failing anymore, because they have failed so much, it doesn't impact them at all. And the fact that they're able to walk away and not even care itself can be attractive in a weird way. Because the fact that they're able to walk away from it and it doesn't impact them at all, both says something about let's say it's a girl for the hell of it. It says something about the girl. It makes the girl wonder, was that something about me? Like, am I not worth having? Or was it him? Does he have something that I don't know about that actually makes him interesting that I didn't see? And even if, like, she shrugs it off and he's like, it's just another fucking loser, which is perfectly reasonable. You can also have the other side of it where she actually does kind of get interested in him, because what was that? And that's sort of where the whole, like, why do assholes have such luck with women? And it sort of stems from that. Like, it's sort of that. Like, I'm not blanketing all women or blanketing all men or human relationships in general, but it can just stem from that. It stems from this sort of false confidence that assholes can have, and the sort of mystery of why are they this way? That sort of makes people wonder about them and start thinking about them. And once they are sort of inside the other person's head, then they can start to seem more appealing because they, in a way, either become sort of a hobby of theirs, or they become a mystery, or they just become someone that's present in their foremind. It's just like that. But regardless of all that nonsense, like, there's all sorts of things that you learn growing up, but it all stems from confidence. It all stems, more importantly, from failing. So, if I want to get into drawing, and I wanted to get into ladies, or men, or both, yes. If you want to get into something, fail. Just fail. Fail in a lot of different ways. So, your answer to how to draw. This is the answer. How to draw. Question, answer. Did you enjoy my little typing? I like hearing. Hear my keyboard? Oh, I ruined it. Oh, well. Oh, there it is. I like hearing a little typing. I like you hear my little strokes. I like that, too. I try not to take those out because people actually enjoy them. Anyways. Video over. I hope you enjoyed the drawing of absolutely nothing. I hope you enjoyed the blank canvas. And again, this is a little experimental thing. You guys seem to like the last video, so I thought that actually doing it this way might be a little bit more interesting. Next one will definitely be a straight-up drawing, but I wanted to make sure that I did something like this before I moved on to anything else. My next one will probably be something far more elaborate, though, so just throwing that out there. Like, this one's very simplistic, obviously, just trying to get it out the door, because I wanted to make sure I got at least 2 videos this month. But the next one will probably not be stick figures with my left hand this time. It'll probably be something a bit more fancy. Okay. I will see you guys next time. Bye. Ask a girl out.